For example, 2 years ago, applicants from Yemen, Libya and Syria, for example, 99% of them were granted asylum. Just to, provide a bit of context there.
Hello everybody. So yesterday there was another edition of Question Time presented by Fiona Bruce, who has often faced allegations of being pro-Tory, right or wrong. But there are, as a license fee payer myself, I have detected enough evidence to suggest that she has been leaning towards Tory. Whether the way she makes interventions, the way she admonishes her guest or panelist, you can make out that, it's not even-handed. She hasn't been even-handed. And that's one of the first thing, the BBC teaches you to be impartial, to be absolutely unbiased. How would I know that? I have worked with BBC for 12 years, as I have said in my previous videos. So here was another edition of Question Time, and this time her there was a Labour lady and there was a Conservative lady, and the way she was making intervention, when Labour lady spoke compared to how she made intervention when the Conservative lady spoke, you can make out that there was a subtle, a difference. So that's one thing. But what was most frightening aspect of last night's episode was the suspected Islamophobic trope by Fiona Bruce. And that's the most dangerous part of it, because as somebody, who is Muslim and who has been living in this country and who's made UK as his permanent home, where, all four of my children were born, I think it's quite frightening. And what happened? She was discussing the immigration, and there was a gentleman who came, and as the argument they make, while opposing immigration, was that how most of these immigrations, according to this gentleman, most of those immigrants, illegal immigrants who come to this country, they're either drug dealers or rapists or murderers. This guy, there is no evidence to suggest that that's indeed the case. There are antisocial elements, I think, in every ethnic group or every society, wherever you live in the world, to kind of then extrapolate that most of those immigrants who come to this country or illegal migrants who come to this country, they are either drug dealers or rapists or murderer. I think it's a step too far. So that's the argument this gentleman made. Even before he could complete his argument, Fiona Bruce intervenes and says, okay, let me provide you some context. Like 2 years ago, there were 3 countries, according to her, Yemen, Syria and Libya. 99% of the applicants, they had got their applications approved and got the asylum in this country. Just watch the clip.
This Rwanda plan, for me, is a brilliant idea by the Conservative Party. And it's being stopped by, for me, idiots that are just thinking of human rights and saying that this and that. But these people have no right to stay. They've come here illegally. Come here legally, fine. Brilliant. We'll have you all over here. Get jobs with you, work, pay your taxes, do everything else. A lot of these illegal immigrants that are coming over are criminals, the drug dealers, rapists, murderers. They're getting away with a lot of it.
I just point out that, for example, 2 years ago, applicants from Yemen, Libya and Syria, for example, 99% of them were granted asylum. Just to, provide a bit of context there.
Now, just imagine how infuriating is that. She's providing context. The guy is starting by praising Rwanda plan, the government's controversial Rwanda plan, which everybody thinks is a gimmick. And we have squandered, hundreds of millions of pounds, our taxpayers' money, in making Rishi Sunak's dream fulfilled. This guy starts by praising that, and he's calling those who are opposing Rwanda plan as idiots. Then he goes on to say that a lot of people who come here illegally are criminals, murderers, rapists, and drug dealers. And then this posh lady, she does the job of, she does brilliant job in gaslighting by saying that, look, 2 years ago, this happened and blah, 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 blah. She mentioned those 3 Muslim countries. Now imagine, here is a gentleman who is making a wild allegation to describe these illegal migrants to be murderers, drug dealers, or even rapists. What Fiona Bruce does, she immediately mentions 3 Muslim countries, and implying that most of those illegal migrants or most of those asylum seekers are from these 3 Muslim countries. So you can imagine, what kind of seed of doubt you are creating in the minds of British public. That when it comes to, instead of challenging that person or asking him to come up with some evidence to justify, his claim, she actually supports that. To say that, look, let me give you the context. I'm till now, it's been more than 12 hours since the program was broadcast, and I haven't been able to find the relevance of that context as to why that context was needed. If somebody is saying that a large group of, or overwhelming majority of those people coming to the UK illegally are murderers, rapists, and drug dealers, then you immediately jump in to provide a context and name 3 Muslim countries to say that 99% applicants from these 3 countries had their applications for asylum approved. Now that's factually not true. If you look at the data of 2023, you will see that the countries from where the most number of asylum seekers came were Afghanistan, India, Pakistan, Turkey, and Iran. Now, India is not a Muslim country, and that's the most recent figure. That's the most recent figure you can see on the screen. So India is not a Muslim country. I come from India. India is not a Muslim country. Pakistan and Afghanistan, UK have to take the blame, for making those countries so unstable. So if now people from those 2 countries are coming and seeking refuge in this country, we have ourselves to be blamed. If you have gone and wrecked those countries, it is incumbent upon you to provide sanctuary to the people who are now getting adversely impacted by your policies. Iran, we have actively encouraged, women in Iran to stand against the regime. So now if they are feeling persecuted, it's our moral responsibility to provide them refuge. So where is the fuss? Turkey is part of NATO. We are part of NATO. Turkey is part of NATO. So where is the fuss? So instead of giving examples of these 5 countries, she chose 3 countries' names. She mentioned 3 countries, Fiona Bruce, and those 3 countries also, according to her, 2 years ago. Why don't you want to give the most recent example? Why did she not mention that the 5 countries who have sent most number of asylum seekers? And if you look at the data of Refugee Council, you will come across that 2/3 of those applications are approved. So that means that our officials, in their wisdom, find their cases legitimate. So where is the fuss? Just because you are not able to, look after your border properly, just because you have been incompetent in your job, doesn't mean that you should start dehumanizing and vilifying a particular community or faith group. And by the way, this is a very established, method. When the political regime, when the political party in any country, and I can tell you from my experience in India, I've just spent 6 to 7 years living in India, I can tell you that when the political party starts to see that their political ground has become slippery and they are not able to stay in power for as long as they want to be, dehumanizing or vilifying minority becomes their favorite tool, and it helps. So projecting majority as the victim and minority as the oppressors becomes a very effective tool. So I'm not surprised that when elections are going to happen maybe five months down the line, in October and November, and the BBC, how now it has become completely under the grip of Tory party, I'm not surprised that the lead anchor or presenter of a very popular TV show, which is broadcast on BBC One, which has amazing penetration, amongst the British population, goes on to then drop this Islamophobic trope. I don't know whether she was doing it deliberately, but it was very frightening development. I would like to know. I'm going to write to the editor of Question Time. It'll be interesting to know as to what was going in her mind. Whichever way you look at it is very frightening. And as somebody who is a Muslim himself, I can feel that fear. That's it for today. Thank you very much. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so. That's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.